Ba'ashem, Yahushai Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, and Damars the Apostles and others, Grand Millstone, and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is your brother, I'm Noah Allah from Gemini, Chicago, and I'm just going to go ahead and get into a quick lesson, alright, of what you see on the news, alright, but here, it says, Trump says he consider invoking the Insurrection Act. What does that mean? And what it really means is basically martial law is about to be declared. Right? Well, here we're going to read here in the definition. It says the Insurrection Act of 1807 is a U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrections, and of armed rebellion. And I was looking at Apostle Tahar's recent video, right, which he has made not too long ago, but he was also going into the same thing, the Insurrection Act, martial law, and basically, Jacob's trouble, right? But yeah, here you have Trump. All right, he is already labeled Antifa as a T organization. All right, I'm speaking in code right now, but he has labeled them as a T organization. And many more people are going to be labeled as a T organization, especially us, of the hopeful elect. All right, because we're out there in the highways and byways prophesying, prophesying against, this wicked kingdom. We're prophesying against Mount Seir, prophesying against Esau. All right. We're bring out the scriptures that condemns Esau. Right. Exposing Esau. And real soon, all right, we're also going to be labeled as, a T organization. All right. Well, yeah, this is what's coming down the pipe. All right, martial law is about to be declared, and things are going to get wild. But it says President Donald Trump said he considered declaring an insurrection inside the United States, accusing Democrat governors and mayors of preventing federal government from enforcing immigration laws and turning their cities into cities and war zones. Chicago is a great city where there's a lot of crime, Trump told reporters on Tuesday. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job. We'll do the job. It's all very simple. Invoking an Insurrection Act went on full extraordinary presidential powers to use military force in American cities in a manner not used since the Civil Rights Movement. So this is basically martial law. All right. And during the time when martial law is declared, all right, which, we haven't even been one, in this generation, all right, especially on a large scale all across the United States, all right, basically your rights are taken away, all right, all your rights are taken away. And they can throw you a FEMA camp, they can arrest you, all right, they can keep you in a FEMA camp as long as they want. All right, without you having a say or a lawyer. On top of that, in the time of martial law being declared, all right, troops are also going to be given authority to gun down civilians as well. That is what they have signed last year in September. That DOD directive since last year in September, where they're given authority, which they will soon. They'll be given authority to gun down civilians. says it will also potentially pit troops from a Southern Republican-run state against Northern Democratic-run cities and states. Some 200 National Guard troops from Texas were preparing to deploy to Chicago this week. Administration officials told the federal judge this week, who agreed not to block the deployments for now. But yeah, I believe the Texas National Guard are here already in Chicago. And also heard another story about where the Illinois National Guard are basically not following Trump's orders. So basically, they're disobeying Trump. All right. So yeah, this country is really divided. All right. Slovakia. I'm gonna just do something real quick. Satan divided. Oh, nation. Yeah, says Matthew 12:26, and if Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? And you're seeing, America is really divided. All right, you got Democratic-run states, coming up against, the Republican-run states. All right. So, you got some states that are disobeying, Trump. All right. And so there's going to be a clash. But yeah, Esau really does need martial law to be set in place, all right, in order to enforce the MOTB, where they can make it mandatory and it can be a full out, things about it look real totalitarian out here in America, all right, and Esau is going to definitely implement the RFID microchip as what is written according to prophecy in the scriptures. All right, and those who refuse to take it will be beheaded. But yeah, this scripture also goes into martial law. All right, 2nd Ezra 16:71. And the apostles and others of Great Muslim, they have been warning of these times that are coming, and here we are now. All right, prophecy is speaking. It says, "For there shall be," I'll start at 70. 2nd Ezra 16:70. "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord." And those that fear the Lord is literally talking about, the Lord's people, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right, you Israelites. They should be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall there be no harm my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. And yeah, when martial law gets declared, right, it's not gonna be peaceful at all. All right, there's gonna be a lot of blood out here in the streets of America, a lot of dead bodies. All right, these citizens of America, they will no longer have any rights. All right, a lot of people are gonna be thrown into FEMA camps. All right, There's going to be checkpoints all over the place. All right. Shall go to a city not be able. Second Ezra 15 and 17. Woe, I'm going to start with verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be swords, being that modern day weapon, or any kind of weapon, but especially the gun. Right? A lot of people here in America are armed to the teeth. Right? A lot of people have guns. Right? And these people are about to turn up on against each other. All right? There's going to be different kinds of factions. All right, now you're already seeing the two main factions. You got the Democratic and the Republican factions and shit. Or you have the constitutionalists and those who are actually for Trump. All right, coming against each other. Or civilians. Things get dire out here, and when there's a scarcity of food out here, resources and shit. Right, these people are going to be breaching into each other's homes, killing each other, for food. Right? Money is not going to be in the minds of these people, because in that time in Jacob's trouble, money will be useless. Paper. That's all what it is. Paper. It says, for there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard the kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So yeah, as Trump, deems those as, rebellions, all right, those who are not following Trump's orders, he's deeming them as, T organizations, all right. They're basically going, people are not going to be, regarding the kings or princes, your governors, your law enforcement, all right, military, whatever, things of that nature. And they're going to take matters into their own hands too. Verse 17, the man shall desire to go into his city and shall not be able. Checkpoints. When martial law gets declared, there's going to be checkpoints set around. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, and houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And yet, because of, of their pride, especially of our people, all right, they're going to be destroyed, all right, for all the wicked doings. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy the houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulations. And yeah, I read not too long ago that in a government shutdown, it also affects farmers, all right? And how? Well, they need money. They need money in order to operate the machines that they use for farming. And when they cannot operate the machines, all right, they basically are going to be slowed down into growing crops, all right? Them machines, all right, it costs a lot of money in order to operate them, all right? And that's what farmers basically need. And so that, farmers are worrying about that, all right, since this government shutdown is going on. So it starts with the food banks first, and in these ghettos, all right, where Jake lives at, all right, people won't be able to get any food from the food banks because the food banks will no longer have any food. There's about to be a scarcity of food, all right, famine in diverse places, all right, and well, that will also cost people more to pay for groceries, or as things become more scarce. But nonetheless, alright, that's martial law that's about to be declared. Alright, the Insurrection Act that you're seeing all over the news. It's on the mainstream media. Alright? Every news source is speaking about it. And yeah, this Insurrection Act will help deploy. It will help Trump to deploy the military into every city. Alright, because it's martial law. But yeah, that also tells you that, alright, a Black Swan event is also right around the corner. Alright? Could be a false flag T attack. Alright? Which I believe, me personally, I believe that it'll be, a biological T attack real soon. Alright, meaning like there's going to be a new disease or new virus that's going to be extremely dangerous. And I believe that's going to happen. Or, other scenarios, a blackout, which also will happen too. Alright, a blackout. When the electricity gets cut off. But we all know who's, pulling the strings behind the scenes at the end of the day. Behind closed doors. That would be of the elites. Right? But this Esau is about to come down, having great wrath upon 2/3 of our people. Alright? And as this is Jacob's trouble, alright, this is also going to be Esau's trouble in these other nations too. Alright? But nonetheless, hope this lesson was edifying. Hope it was edifying. I want to give all praises, honors, and glories to Yahweh Hashem. Yahweh Shai Hashem Rakakudash and Shalom.